You are listening to Game Night. I am your host, Layla.
And I'm your co-host, Drae.
And here we cover the latest gaming news, topics, and trends, and, well, tech as well. We're kind of nerds. In this episode, in 2015, Bethesda and Valve worked together to launch a paid mod marketplace. This backlash was immediate. Nearly 12 years later, predictably, Bethesda is right back on it again. What we're looking at is modding games, to pay or not to pay. A lot of people have had very different opinions on this topic, and if you don't, you probably will by the end of the podcast.
So just for a brief timeline, in the 1980s, Castle Smurfenstein for Castle Wolfenstein kind of set an early modding precedent for how exactly the community would go about creating user-generated content for games. In the 1990s, you had the rise of modding communities for games like Doom and Quake. And then further on into the 2000s, modding expands with games like Half-Life, The Elder Scrolls, as many people I'm sure are aware at this point, into the 2010s, where modding becomes a lot more accessible with tools like the Steam Workshop, into modern era, where we have continued growth in modding for games across various genres and platforms. In 2015, Valve introduced a paid mod system on the Steam Workshop, initially for Skyrim and Fallout 4, but it was withdrawn fairly quickly due to backlash. In 2017, Bethesda's Creation Club launched, sparking debates on paid mods for games like Skyrim, and in 2020s, continued discussions amid platforms like Nexus Mods and various game communities explored paid mod options at a further availability to the users generating this content.
We've been trying to get to this topic for, I think, well over a month now. There's been so much coverage on it at this point. It's been a little daunting kind of keeping up with it. I quite distinctly recall that some mod authors that were previously in favor of paid mods have actually switched gears and then decided that maybe it's not the best approach after seeing the outcome of paid mods that have come out and the way the community has handled it, which I think we could agree has been quite controversial. In essence, the arguments that we're looking at is the pros of paid mods, supports modders financially, has a potential for higher quality and support, which we'll discuss more in a moment, and incentivizes innovation and ambitious projects, or at least we would hope. The cons, on the other hand, shifts focus from passion to profit, can fragment modding communities, and we've seen quite a bit of that, and the quality concerns compared to free mods. So then when we're looking at the pros of free mods, as they have been since the inception of mods, they've been driven by passion and community collaboration, maintains accessibility for all players, promotes creativity without commercial pressures. I almost said pleasures. That would have been awkward.
Well, I'm sure it does for some people as well. I mean, we've all seen the Nexus.
So the cons of free mods lack financial support for mods. Obviously, as they're going deeper into modding, they begin to have less and less time to give to their passion projects because, let's be honest, we all have bills to pay. Then the quality and support can vary. There's sort of this legal grey area with copyright and IP issues.
Looking at you, Pal World.
This is the arguments that we're looking at, the pros and the cons, and boy, have we seen a lot of that really come to the surface since paid mods have been released. Now, I think it's been a bit more prominent in some modding communities than others. There are some modding communities that still seem to be doing quite well with modding and have stayed primarily free, but I think some of the areas where paid mods have shaken things up have been in communities like Bethesda's. One of the observations that have been made since the release of a lot of paid mods is quality.
the big one. Here we go.
The big one.
Oh, good grief.
I really have to emphasize this one for folks, especially who love mods and love their games. When you purchase a game, you expect not just a certain level of quality, but that running the thing won't break your game, or even worse, potentially your PC.
Also, just support in general.
You would hope for a bare minimum of support. This is literally what IT support, why it exists. But for paid mods, there is none. There is no support whatsoever, at least from Bethesda's end. They wash their hands clean of it. unless I have somehow missed a footnote somewhere where Bethesda, has said, oh, yes, actually, we'll help you if you have any IT issues. There is no promise for IT support or anything, or any promise that the mod will not break your game. And you may have to uninstall your game and reinstall it. So,
No, and in fact, it's actually quite the opposite. So
right.
it goes so far as to say that Bethesda, if it's at the user's risk. Bethesda will not support it, will not help, and if they do a patch later on and it breaks it, and the person who created the content just can't be asked, then you've just bought $3 worth of a brick.
Is the other thing too, right? Because as we know, because I've actually created a number of follower mods, and Bethesda is notorious for releasing updates that break mods constantly. My last follower mod that I had made, Bethesda released a patch, and then she was trumpet. She had like the orange face syndrome, and at that point I just threw my hands up and I was like, you know what, I'm done.
It's just a really bad sunburn.
Something, right? That's kind of the concern, isn't it? That, when a game releases updates, if they have DLCs, they will normally release updates with those DLCs and those expansions in mind, right? And they will hopefully, we hope, not break the DLCs and expansions. Now, occasionally it still does happen, but at a much lower frequency than it does for individuals making mods. It's pretty much guaranteed that every time a game updates, it's going to break somebody's mod. So the fact that you pay for a mod and there's no guarantee, there's no support if it breaks your game is wild.
Well, not only wild, it raises a question of accountability. I mean, who is going to be held responsible for maintaining the support for it? Because Bethesda is not going to foot the bill here, and it's a transaction that's taking place. Technically speaking, and I'm not a law expert here, so don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that if something stops working, this could be a breach of some consumer laws in Europe.
It could very well be. No matter what, it's concerning on either end. I said I wasn't going to get into opinion on this, and I realized that everything I just said sounded very, very opinionated. But I mean, at the core of the issue, from its inception, modding has basically been a fan work. Because essentially, you take a game that you love and then you create something to add on to it. It's not much different than drafting your own fanfic character to throw into your favorite universe. It's a very similar concept. So in essence, turning it to paid mods is sort of like fan fiction as a career, which is kind of an interesting way to think about it when you really break it down. I believe you had mentioned there were some concerns that arose about piracy becoming an issue for mods with paid mods and what have you.
Yeah, when the initial push for paid mods happened after Valve's, let's be honest, failed experiment with the initial push of the paid mods, which we'll get into that in a minute. A lot of these mods started ending up on mod piracy websites. I'm not going to name names just because, obvious reasons. I don't want people's work stolen. But this started happening pretty much rampantly. And you started seeing a lot of vitriol being thrown in between the two sides of the spectrum, right? You had the people who were for it, the people who were against it, and both sides were vehemently for their perspective. And because of this, you had mod authors who were trying to make money off of their work, defending their right of ownership for their work, which we'll get into that as well.
Right, yeah.
And then you had the users who were saying, no, this, you're not making us pay for something that's been up until this point of like you were saying, essentially a fan work that has been supported out of the love for the universe, for the work itself, what have you.
Right.
And because of this, it's sort of creating a very polarizing culture just on its existence alone. And that's sort of developed into some really nasty habits that have not become super prominent, but it has happened. For instance, people putting ads in their mods for the free version, or for the paid version in their free version of the mod. There was a little bit of that. there's nothing that I love more than getting reminded about the premium service that I could be paying for in something
pop-ups.
that I'm enjoying. Yeah, exactly. I love being pulled out of my downtime to be reminded, hey, you could be paying for this. But unfortunately, it gets a little bit more nasty than that. For instance, people putting malicious code into their mods. So this
Oh,
actually happened in the Doom community.
right.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head in the Elder Scrolls community, although I'm sure it's happened. There was a mod pack, or a map pack, excuse me, called Extermination Day, that when it was combined with certain mods that the author didn't really care for, it would do things like crash GZ Doom or cause a resource lockup of some sort that would cause the whole thing to freeze up and refuse to operate. There was a lot of nasty stuff that got put into it, and as far as I'm aware, those have been removed. But that's just an example. This kind of stuff is happening.
That's
It
awful.
does. Yeah, it represents a problem in the sphere, right? It is an
I
issue that
mean,
has to be addressed.
can you imagine playing a game that you love and then you load up these mods to enhance your game experience and then it crashes your game because this mod author has a beef with another mod author? It's like friendly fire.
It's when ego gets in the way of art.
And I really think it kind of showcases a much larger issue, is like the polarization that's happening within the gaming community. It's already such a niche community to begin with, and then yet this is dividing people even more.
Especially when you consider that it used to be something where you'd see a lot of collections of mod authors, which still happens. I don't want to paint the wrong picture here. Working together to make bigger and better projects. There's a lot of people that have broken off completely solo now, and they won't work with anyone.
But I know that some of our most impressive mods that we've gotten have been from such collaborations, and it's been a very beautiful thing to watch because you see these mod authors with a shared love and passion for a specific game. And one that comes to mind is Stardew Valley, for example. There are lots of mod authors over there. The ones who do work together, they have such beautiful work they put out and beautiful things to say about one another, and they're always crediting back and forth. This is the kind of cooperation that you're going to need to have when you move forward to work in a gaming studio, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think building up your portfolio with fan work is not necessarily like the point of contention here. I think you would agree with that. There's nothing wrong with building up a portfolio so that you can make that step and so you can get your foot in the door. However, we're in this area where Bethesda's not trying to offer these people a position so much as they're just trying to piggyback off of what they're already doing.
Exactly. Like you were saying, having this stuff added to your portfolio is in no way a bad thing. And in fact, it shows that you can take a pre-existing project and then build upon it, which is an exceptionally good thing. But when we're looking at paid mods and we're looking at companies like Bethesda, and, I'm waiting to see who's going to try and follow Bethesda's footsteps. Bethesda isn't necessarily holding out a branch or anything and saying, hey, let's give you a job. What they're seeing is that people are making mods, people want the mods, and then Bethesda's saying, we're going to make a marketplace for you to sell it and you can make money, but you know what? We get a slice of the pie as well.
They're pulling a Bobby Kotick.
Mm-hmm.
They have dollar signs in their eyes, and that's all they care about.
That's it.
It has nothing to do with helping the mod author. It has nothing to do with helping the community. There's no quality assurance that's being taken place. Although they claim that there is, we've seen in the past proof opposite. And do we really need to talk about Bethesda's track record with lying? Why we can trust anything that comes out of their mouths, which it's a corporation that wants your money anyway. Your guard should be up regardless of what they tell you.
When it comes to Bethesda and what they release and what they promise and whatnot, with every new game and every new expansion or DLC they release, it raises eyebrows. And I think one of the most recent ones was Starfield, was it not?
Mm-hmm. And that has turned into an absolute dumpster fire overnight. The fact that Starfield is now in a worse position after its release, after they've released more content for it, than Cyberpunk 2077 was at release for, we'll say 2/3 of the year afterwards, is concerning. And it also kind of indicates how Bethesda's starting to approach business, to the point where it feels like the customer satisfaction is at an all-time low, and their ability to read the room is non-existent.
That seems to be a reoccurring issue with major gaming companies now.
Yes.
So I notice.
Cue
But
Ubisoft.
among others.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the issue has much less to do with paid mods and more to do with companies exploiting people who would like to be reimbursed for their work.
Right, which is, there's nothing wrong with. I want to reiterate that.
Of course.
Wanting to do what you love and make money off of it, that's totally fine. There's no one that's ever going to argue against that and actually have a foundation for that argument.
Of course. Which actually brings me to my next thought. I wonder if there would be any way to implement mod commissioning. We know that we have artist commissioning. We can commission artists, music artists, digital artists, etc. Is there any space in the modding community for such commissioning? If so, how could that be implemented in a way that would not create any sort of issues?
Right, and that's kind of my main question with that in particular is, as far as I'm aware, I don't think the actual commissioning someone's work, not necessarily the product of it, but their actual time investment.
Yes.
To create something that you are asking for, I could be wrong, but I don't think that actually is a violation of the rules for making money off of your mods. I don't think. Feel free to fact check me on this one in particular, because there's not actually a lot of information on this specifically, because as far as I can tell, if someone's doing it, they're not doing it publicly.
Right. Let's be honest. If there were to be issues about commissioning mod work, then there would have to be issues with commissioning, fan artwork as well. As far as I'm aware, there's plenty of people who commission fan works, whether it's Twitch stream overlays, whether it's crochet plushie, you name it, it's done. I don't see why modding would be a unique exception to the rule. It's an interesting idea, one that I would definitely be very interested to see. It would be a way to really reimburse modders for their time and really show them that they're appreciated.
And it wouldn't require dividing the community so much, right? Because it would be something that's opt-in rather than something that feels like it's being held under a guillotine, right? Like, if you want content from your favorite mod authors, you better pay up. That's how it comes off right now.
Right.
And that's not good for anybody.
I've made mods. I believe you've made mods as well. We know the work that goes into it. No one is going to say that mod authors should not be appreciated and reimbursed for their time, especially if it requires a substantial amount of their time, because I can think of countless mods that have become absolutely crucial to modding in a game. I can think of one in Conan Exiles, Pippi modding tools. Everybody uses it. It's absolutely crucial to modding. And if Pippi were to disappear one day, and in fact, it actually had happened that the mod author had stated that he might not be able to continue the project. And it really shocked everyone. And the outpour of support that he got to continue with his mod was incredible. So I have no doubt that there is the support out there. Maybe it's about sending the right message.
Yes, and there's a really good example of how not to do it as well that I can think of off the top of my head, and it was exactly when the original paid modding fiasco started. For anyone who was around in the Skyrim community at the time probably remembers that Sky UI was actually holding its update under lock and key for a premium. And if you wanted the new update with all these newfangled tools, you better pay up. That's exactly what I was talking about when I said things being held with a guillotine. It's that kind of I'm going to call it marketing, because that's what it is. It is not only predatory, it comes off as sort of a threat to when you're on the consumer side, right? Like it never
feels good.
Yeah, it's almost like it feels like a mugging almost when you're on that receiving end. I know that's exaggerated and that's dramatic, but when you're thinking about it from like I have X amount of dollars that I can spend and this is part of my hobby, how else do you
Right.
describe that from the consumer side? And once again, I admit that is a dramatization, but it kind of fits.
At the end of the day, whether you're on the side of free mods or paid mods or somewhere in between, the real question is whether you're really ready for that shift, that change in the modding culture. Everyone will really need to ask themselves, am I prepared for the cost of entry into the gate that I've chosen on the issue? Have we decided what we're going to do for next episode? Do we want to...
TBD.
And here is where we would have a teaser for next episode to be announced. Yeah. So thank you for listening in to Game Night Podcast. We will catch you with the next podcast.